Welcome, everybody. This is Charlie Crawford, and welcome to Charlie Crawford Podcast. Today we have my good friend, Kory Koontz, on the podcast today. Kory, welcome.
You bet. Good to be here.
Man, when I was looking at it and researching everything in mid to late 90s on my way in, you were established.
Right.
You were one of the guys. You were the guys that I looked up to. A lot of the guys that when I came in with, they looked up to you, and you're a great role model. But I thought you and Clay Cooper, Alan Bach, Jake Barnes, and a handful of you, man, I really thought you guys did a good job of, you guys kind of changed the culture. Like when you guys came in, you brought your faith to the table, and how you presented yourself, and how your actions spoke for themselves. But it kind of changed that. I think you guys really did a good job of changing the love and drink and fighting cowboy theme.
Right.
And you guys started taking roping to another level, and also professionally. Like you guys did a good job. Like that's what you guys started doing for a living. And it really helped mold me and how I looked up to you. But then we also got to be good friends. Then I got to be able to rope with you at a lot of jackpots, and we're second partners and third partners, and now good friends. And then now we work together and do a lot of clinicians. So it's been a fun relationship.
Yeah, I agree. And going to the, as far as changing the culture of rodeo and kind of all of that, I don't take any credit for that, because when I came in very young, a new husband, a 19-year-old father, and all of those things, and I was just searching for a way to make a living, for one thing, and roping was all I knew how to do. And then, man, to look at how my career got started, Rube Woolsey asked me to rope. He's living at Clay Cooper's place, helping Clay. Basically, I got to meet Jake and Clay. I got to be friends with guys like Ricky Green and Bobby Harris, and the guys that I looked up to that were true professionals at what they did. And so then even going into, man, at that time, I was not only trying to learn how to be a father and a husband and make a living and all of that, but I was lost spiritually. And so then having role models like Alan Bach and Clay Cooper and Jake and those guys to look up to at who I wanted to be. Like I looked to them, kind of what you're saying, how you looked up to you and included me in that group. And it's like, man, what an honor for me to be included in that. And then, I never really set out to change anything. I just wanted to live in a certain way and act a certain way and do things in a certain way professionally, so that if there was that kid looking through the fence, if there was somebody that's lost, if there's somebody searching, that if I am living and competing and talking and doing things in the right kind of way, then God could use me right where I was at in my own little circles, to where he could use me to make a difference. And man, the older I get feedback sometimes from people coming up and saying, man, you did this a long time ago, and you might not even remember it.
Kind of like today at our clinic in Arizona.
Made a difference.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool story.
Man, the guy walks up after a full day of working with him with his healing, and he'd told me that he wanted to come to the clinic, and that he bought a horse 2 days ago. He said, man, I can't come to the clinic if I don't have a horse, so I bought this horse. And he bought a pretty dang good horse. And then he said, yeah, about, 15 or so years ago at Livingston, Montana, you were in a hurry. You're loading up your rig, and you're in a hurry to get somewhere, and I could tell, but I wanted to meet you, and I just stopped you and introduced myself, and you give me 10 minutes of your time just talking, and you were real, and you were honest, and and he said, I never have forgot that. And he said, that's why I'm at your clinic today. And man, what a great thing for me as feedback, like, man, made me tear up.
Well, I tell you what, you inspired a lot of people, in your career. You're being a great guy. You're a great, humble guy. But for, maybe if you're just getting into the industry, maybe in the last few years, and maybe just getting in the team roping, and you're a little late to the party, but you ought to just listen to Kory's stats in his 30-year career. From the Open to the World, which he used to be one of the biggest ropens in the 90s and 2000s. This roping paid $50,000 cash, that correct, in a briefcase.
Yeah.
That Billy Pipes put on at the Wildfire Rope in Salado, Texas. You were the 5-time champion of that. Then the George Strait, which is those two ropings ain't here no more. They were, so it sucks that they didn't keep going, because those were some great ones. But the George Strait roping, I don't know what all they paid, but it was getting close to $100,000 to win those. A truck, a brand new truck and a trailer. 3-time champion of the George Strait roping. The U.S Open, which is how most of us got our start to the U.S. ropings, that was a big, prolific win. And the BFI champ 3 times. So the last I researched, unless I lost anything out, you had 12 Grand Slams.
Yes.
Was there any other ones that I missed?
I don't.
Your jackpot career was phenomenal.
Yeah,
And then the NFR title. You got an average NFR title in 97.
Right.
That one's hard to win. And then 22 times you made it to the NFR. And that's not even counting the heel horses that you had.
Right.
That's probably what I would say that so many people remember. Like, for one, your legacy that you left as being a great man. 2, the things you've won was amazing. But you've had heel horses that people just dream of. Iceman, Jackyl, Switchblade, Abbey, LB, Remix. And that was just the ones I remembered.
Well, that's it.
That's a heck of a career.
I didn't have a whole lot more than that, and those other ones didn't last long, and they got kind of sent down the road. But that little handful of horses what made my whole career.
Mm-hmm.
And Iceman started it. I was able to buy that horse because a guy named Flynn Ferris, who was roping with Mike Macy, making the finals in, I think it was 1988, something like that, 87, 88, right in there somewhere. He had this horse and needed to sell him for whatever reason, whether he needed the money, whatever. Or didn't want to feed him, I don't know. The horse did a lot of cool stuff, but
he was one of my favorites.
He would drop out of sight in the front end.
Really?
When I first got him, and it was hard to even get a dally on him.
That was impressive, because that was what I remembered so much as a young kid, was that sucker would bury his tail and slide.
He'd crawl.
Yeah.
So then the funny thing is I was no part horseman. I didn't know anything. I was tired of that horse dropping because I was having a hard time dallying. I was doing pretty good in the high school rodeo deal and going to a few jackpots, but then I'd have a hard time completing the course and getting a dally every time because he wanted to drop. And I mean, he would just flat out get on the ground. So one day I'm in the feedlot and I've got a tie-on rope, like just a poly calf rope, and I was like, all right, you little sucker, I'll teach you to drop. So I just run in behind the fat one going down the alley, down the hill. Them feedlots are built on a hill. It's hard as cement. I just roll up in there and just stick it on one. I'm like, just pitch my slack and just let him drop. And I mean, it about jerked him right over on his nose, and he went to scrambling and went to crawling.
So just in case we have any guys that are just kind of getting into the industry, this is not recommended.
No, I don't recommend this at all. But I will say
this was
after that day,
effective.
Yes, he never dropped again. And his whole thing was kind of built on how he would crawl through the corner, and he'd keep his front end moving with his butt down, and it didn't matter. Man, now I look at how I ride one and how I do things, and I truly really over micromanage every little thing my horses do.
So what you're saying is we can just simplify it, just head to the feedlot and just go.
Yeah, I didn't know anything, and I tried to make that horse mess up. I mean, I would run him by the corner. I would do everything in my power. I just thought it was fun. Mm-hmm. Pulling off shots was fun.
Yeah,
and that was, kids probably nowadays have seen me rope, and it's like, well, he just does the same thing every time. He cuts in, swings, and then second, third hop, ropes, and it's like, but used to when I was young, I really did. I thought it was fun throwing first hop, or I might rope kind of on the gain and then and then take a coil up in my hand and dally real short and do just stupid stuff that I would tell any kid now, you don't need to do that.
It is funny how we matured.
But over time, the reason I say Iceman's the best horse I ever had is because I tried to screw him up, and he ended up being great anyway.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
And so,
what ended up happening to him? I forgot.
he evidently breathed in like a little piece of sawdust or something, and it went into his lung. And then he had a cough that I couldn't figure out how to get rid of for like 2 or 3 years. And then I got to feeding him this that's called Vinnie Pullman, and I think barrel racers use it. It's for their breathing.
Yeah.
I got to feeding him that, and then it just kind of come to a head. He ended up, long story short, he got an abscess in his left lung, and then it grew to the lining of the wall of his lung, and then it burst, and he got pleural pneumonia.
That's what I can remember. Him and Scooter both had pleural pneumonia, if I remember right.
We got him over that, but then the abscesses spread through his whole left lung, and ultimately that's what killed him when he was 16 years old.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. So coming from Sudan, Texas, up there in the Panhandle, your environment was a lot different than mine. Mine was a lot of trees, a lot of grass, a lot of rain. We roped inside a lot. Yours was a lot different. Yours flat, windy, dry, feedlots, dairies, pasture, wheat pasture, and some of the greatest people. That is one thing I do love about the Panhandle up there, is there's some of the greatest people in the world.
Yeah.
But how did you get your start? What did your parents do? What inspired you? And then what was it that made you to where you decided this is what you think you're going to do? I'm going to be a legendary team roper.
Well, I honestly didn't set out to do even close to what I ended up doing. I grew up, my dad managed a feedlot, and we didn't, because I was just a kid. They built an arena there. The people that owned the feedlot bought one set of steers each year. My dad would buy calves. I roped calves. I team roped. I did all of that. At 8 years old, I got my thumb cut off roping with my cousin, Trip Townsend, at the ranch that his dad ran that was over kind of between Muleshoe and Portales, New Mexico, and just kind of a fluke deal. Cut my thumb off, and then kind of just go from there. But there was always, at the feedlot, there were always horses. I always had horses. My dad always made sure I had horses, and there were always steers to rope, and we just roped.
Yeah.
And there was not a plan. We went to a few jackpots. There were the feedlot ropings where, go compete a little bit. And then as I got a little older, I was pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. And so then my dad and my mom went out of their way to make sure that I could go to the High Plains Junior Rodeos, and went to the AJRA, the American Junior Rodeo Association, went to all of those. And then I start kind of getting to where I'm competing against other guys that ended up being NFR guys and world champion guys. But at the time, me and Strand Smith butted heads roping calves in high school. And, who'd have thought that I'd have had my career and he would go on and win a world title and do all the great things he did, and we were just up there in the Panhandle of Texas, just,
being
just
cowboys and roping.
Yeah, and so, then fast forward to I go to college. I went to a jackpot during the NFR. Mike Macy and Steve Purcell and Jeff Medlin. Those are the guys. Mike Macy talked my mom into trusting him to take me out there to go to this jackpot. And I had Iceman.
Anybody knows Macy, this has to be a great story.
Well, so me and Macy fly out there, and Jeff Medlin and Steve Purcell haul the horses out there, and they do all the legwork, and I don't even remember if I paid a dime. They just took me.
Yeah.
And then the way I remembered is I did good at the roping. Like I had a good couple of days, did good at the roping, and then after that, and Rube Woolsey was there, but he's from Arizona. I'm from Texas. I knew of him, but I didn't know him very good. And he calls me up, hey, you ever thought about going to any rodeos? And I'm like, oh, what kind of rodeos you talking about? He's like, well, pro rodeos. I said, oh, shoot. Yeah, I guess so. What do you got to do to go to those? I mean, I'm dumber than dumb, greener than a gourd. So he explains to me how to buy my permit and what I need to do to get ready, like to have everything done in time to enter Denver and try to get in on my permit. Well, I'm at Vernon Regional Junior College, just being a dummy, and I don't get my stuff in on time, and so we don't get to go to Denver. So then I kind of got my first little case of a good little Rube Woolsey ass chewing over the phone, and I get off the phone, I'm like, dang, he sounded like this is serious, like this, like it means something, you know, and come to find out it does. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal. It's you know, to get your stuff in, to be joined, to, if you want to have a chance to rope against, you know, professionally against the best in the world and do that.
With the best in the world.
Well, yeah, with somebody that ropes really good, you need to take care of business.
Yeah.
So I got my permit. We got entered in Scottsdale, Arizona was my first pro rodeo, and we go out there, and I'll never forget. So he had kind of given me a little bit of a clue, but I drive from Amherst, Texas in my little single cab with a little single axle 2-horse trailer. Me and my mom drive to Scottsdale, Arizona, get a room, tie Iceman to the trailer out there, and put him a bale of hay in front of him and a bucket of water and call it good. And then the next morning I come pulling in at 7 a.m. and I see Rube and Ricky Green and a couple of guys sitting there, and I stop. And I mean, I'm ready to compete. Mm-hmm. Well, he had already told me that, like, we're in the redraws. I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
But he said, well, long story short, it's probably going to be around 3 o'clock this afternoon when we rope, and it's 7 a.m. right now. And so it's like, oh, dang. So me and my mom sat in the stands all day, watching slack, watching team roping, calf roping, all the first runs, and then come back, and then the redraws, and then they bulldog, and they calf rope again, and then we finally are going to get to rope. So I walk up there, I see Rube up there by the kind of where the draw is and stuff, and that's where I'd went and paid my fees earlier, and man, I wanted to take care of business, you know. So I walk up there, and he goes down through the list, and he's like, oh, we got steer Jake and Clay had. I'm like, you're kidding me. He said, no, he's pretty good. I said, Clay roped a leg. How am I supposed
that guy
to catch
never roped
2
a leg.
feet
Yeah.
on a steer that the Clay Cooper roped a leg
The
on?
champ roped a leg. This is impossible.
This is not what I was wanting to see. And so, I mean, I really, and then I can remember walking to the trailer and thinking, man, it's just roping. That steer ain't no different than them ones I've been roping. It's just roping. I don't need to get caught up in whether Clay could catch him or not, or what's going on. I just need to heel the steer. And so me and Rube back in there, and steer kind of runs right down the right fence. I miss the haze. I get pinched right in between the right fence and the steer, and Rube hooks it on him, and this sucker no more turns, and I just shoot it right under Iceman's neck and just boom, and get him. And we win the round. And it's like, never see another poor day. This rodeo is easy.
Hey, champ, let me know if you need me to help you out of cutting that on a leg.
And so, I mean, that's just one little, you know, kind of thing with how it got going. Rube had a very instrumental part in holding my hand and leading me into the PRCA and getting me started. And without, I mean, I look back, and without those initial, that partnership and meeting the guys I met, and just, it was like I was just ushered in, and I was in basically in the clique. Like I was in amongst the best in the world. And so
that's what's so important, I think, for a lot of kids coming up too, is, you know, who you surround yourself with is basically who you're going to be probably in 5 years. There's pretty good stats that show that, you know, if you're around guys who smoke weed and do drugs and do all those things, good chance in 5 years you're going to do the same. Well, if you're surrounded with the winners, there's a dang good chance that you're going to be amongst that too. But one of the things I always looked up to you too was, I thought your style really hasn't changed much from when you started to even when you retired. There might have been a few tweaks here and there, but I always thought you started off with a really good style. But your mental game, you always kept things so simple.
Right.
And to me, that had to have a lot to do with when pressure situations showed up, that you kept it simple and was always able to rise to the challenge. You know, with all these wins, that's amazing. And I always thought that was one of your great strengths as well.
Well, it is kind of odd, and I do believe it's kind of just how God made me. And my parents, I'm sure, had a lot to do with it, because there was never any negativity. My mom might be the most eternal optimist in the world ever. Like, you say something went wrong, well, we'll just go do it again tomorrow. You know, just, you know, that kind of attitude. And so, I mean, believe me when I say I got frustrated a lot, and I questioned myself a lot, and all of those kind of things like normal people do. But each time I backed in the box, you could not have convinced me that I couldn't rope that steer that was in the chute.
Yeah.
I just
confidence.
Believed with every part of my being that I could catch that steer by 2 feet. And through my whole career and my life, that has never changed.
Yeah.
And I would see other guys that I think, man, that guy he can rope better than me. Like, as a whole, I mean, obviously, Speed and Rich win 8 world titles. Jake and Clay have, you know, done what they've done, and all of these greats, and they're just, I mean, I'm just battling with them, butting heads with them. And then I go to these ropings, and man, there was plenty of ropings I didn't win a dime at. But man, the next time I entered a roping, I felt like I'm gonna beat the steer. I'm gonna catch every steer. And from the time I started, I loved jackpotting. Just the whole kind of the game of it, and how to play the game. And what I always felt the best was, I always would be way more aggressive on the short round steer than I ever was the first one. It was almost like I was working up to making the shot to win the roping. And I know growing up, when we were just roping at the feedlot, last steer of the day was always high team at the BF5.
Yeah.
That was high team. And whether I caught him or I missed him, that was the last steer of the day. You don't get to run another one until the next day. There was one kind of rule, is this is the last time through, and we're not bringing them back for you to run another one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the greats did that. And honestly, that's the cheapest jackpot you'll ever enter there at your house.
Yeah. But it would set hard on you if you didn't make that shot. And then, so even to trick myself a little bit, or to make myself, so being this eternal optimist, if I did miss the last one, I would just tell my mom or my dad, whoever would listen, be like, well, that's all right, because I never missed 2 in a row.
I tell you what, if people could remember that right there.
So
now,
the
if I
next
miss
place
that
I
one,
go,
it's very rare to ever miss 2. So you're almost like, that
I'm
one out of the way.
assuring myself
Dang
the next
right.
place I go, I got the first one.
I love
or
it.
if it's a rodeo, man, I'm winning something at this one.
I love it.
So
I apologize on this podcast. I do have me a cough going on right now that just pops out of nowhere, so I apologize for that. But one of the things you talked about earlier, too, was when you lost your thumb.
Right.
So there's a lot of guys out there that rope, that heal, that have lost their thumb. First of all, what do you think caused it? Second of all, has it hindered your roping? And what have you done to make it to where you've learned how to be comfortable with the thumb that you basically have now?
Well, I think probably the coolest thing was that I did it at 8 years old. It didn't change my mentality. I still just wanted to rope. In fact, when my thumb was sewed to my chest, grafted the skin, and I had a cast around me, all I had was my left hand. So I taught myself how to rope left-handed. And then even when it came out of the cast and the stitches came out and it was still tender, man, it just never slowed me down. I just wanted to rope. It was just in me to rope. And so, that was instilled in me. Now, why it happened or how it happened and why, I really, it basically is a little old calf that wasn't very wild. I headed him. I turned him off.
Oh, you did it heading?
Yeah, I did it heading. That heading's hard.
It really is. I'm glad to know that now. I didn't.
Easier.
I thought you did it right there, trying to get Jackyl or trying to get one of them horses to slide.
Yeah, no. So I turned off. Trip Townsend, he comes in there, heals him, stretch him out, and we won everything that day. So then I just ride up, and he's kind of kneeling down. I pull a little slack in. I just lean off my horse and pull a little slack in it, and the calf kind of takes off. Not hard, but just goes. Well, my rope is down around his shoulders. I've got one little coil in my left hand, and I've got my slack to where my hands are not real far apart. So, and then this little horse, kind of a little 13-hand little, it wasn't a Shetland.
Sounds like a head horse.
Yeah, it wasn't a Shetland, but he dang sure wasn't full grown. So he's kind of pegging along there, and I don't want to lose my rope. And so I kind of just try to wave my slack up to get it off the calf's shoulders. And then I just charged down there to get me a dally. And when I got around the front side of the saddle horn, my thumb is pointed over towards that coil, and it's a poly rope. I mean, why I'm using a poly rope, I don't know. My dad, he didn't have a clue neither. We're green as a gourd whole way through.
Together.
Yeah. And so, but anyway, it ran on the horn. It jerked that coil over onto my thumb, and the next thing you know, pop, jerks my thumb off. So that's how it happened. And then they sewed it to my chest. They grafted that skin on there. It kind of made a pad for it. And the cool thing was always, like Cesar de la Cruz, he didn't have much thumb. And he does a phenomenal job of controlling his rope and the two strands and how he uses his rope with, I mean, virtually nothing there.
Yeah.
I've got a half, I've got a good hook there, but I think through the years just naturally learned how to kind of let my rope move in my hand. I know I've got pictures where I'm behind my head and I've got the one strand hooked in my thumb and I've got the other strand, like my hand's almost wide open, and the force of my swing is what holds the rope in my hand, and then I drive it on the ground, and and so those things were learned from an early age all the way up through. I think it's way more difficult when mature grown men cut their thumb off, like what Jake Barnes did, to come back from that at his age and have to learn and redo everything. Not redo everything, but get a whole new feel. Man, that's tough.
That dude is a warrior. If we were back in the day when we had to survive with swords and that guy would have led armies.
I'd want to be on Jake's team.
He would have destroyed people. Like he was a warrior. He reminded me of Rocky Balboa. I mean, this guy had grit, loses his thumb. You guys are winning the average on what, 5, 6 steers? I can't remember.
5, right.
Then loses his thumb and then comes back how many years later? 2 maybe? And wins the average with Clay? But it wasn't very much longer.
I think I don't even remember exactly. I was thinking
but still
Junior
comes back and makes the finals.
Yeah, come back and
after that, that's hard to do.
Well,
when you've relied on that thumb that long, that's grit.
Yep.
Yeah, that guy's one guy that, man alive, yeah, I'm with you. If there's a battle, I want on his team.
Yeah.
So one of the stories that I love the most, especially now with all these Thundercats now rodeoing with, iPhones and internet and all that stuff. What was rodeoing like in the late 80s, early 90s. That was kind of when you got your start, early 90s?
Yeah, 90 and...
What was rodeoing like? So, like, when you entered a rodeo, how did you enter a rodeo? How did you guys get callbacks? How did you guys get trades? Because it's not like you get an email back then. There was no internet.
No.
You know, how many quarters did you have to collect? How many times you have to pull off alongside? Explain to what people actually what a payphone is.
Right. Well, I'll be honest. The first quite a few years of my career, I did not do the entering. No one was depending on me to do the entering. So we'll get that out there. But I can remember, stopping at a payphone, and you didn't put a quarter in. You had, you memorized your credit card number that you punched in to make a call. You called Procom, and then to get a trade list or to get callbacks to see if you needed a trade, you called and you got that, and you wrote it down, and then, man, if you needed a trade list, then you had to call the local line. You had to call a different phone number to get that list, and then you wrote all of those names down.
I remember that.
And then at first, when I first started, they wouldn't give you phone numbers. So then you had to be creative with how to get these certain guys' phone numbers that you maybe never have heard of that are kind of local to whatever areas.
Circuit.
And so, man, it was a pain. It was a lot of work. And then we kind of graduate up to where no one would trade with you unless you paid their fees. Mm-hmm. And then it got to where not only do they want you to pay their fees, they want you to pay them extra.
Yeah.
And they only entered for that. I think people even planned out, I'll ask for the middle and I don't need it, but I know I can get my fees paid and get a little extra bonus money if we hit it. And so, man, all of those kind of things were just hard. And then I can remember getting this box cell phone thing to start with and plug it in. And then, man, I thought I was living high on the hog. And then
until you got the bill.
Oh, after that first month, and then it was $700 and something because of, and I didn't even make that many calls, but where I was calling and the towers that it had to use, it was just unbelievable. And, even thinking about how we got places, looking at a Rand McNally road map, that used to be a really important thing. Nowadays, you don't even really have to type it in your phone.
Nowadays,
you just hit
you don't even know what direction you're going.
Tell your phone where you're going, and then it'll tell you how to get there.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot different. Planning your trips, planning when I've got to be by a payphone, when I've got to be at the rodeo, what route to take, and it's really cool looking back now because of all the relationships I've built through the years and different families that I got to be close with and treated me like family when I happened to be coming through their neck of the woods. And so it's, honestly, looking back, I didn't plan it out. All I was trying to do was make a living.
Yeah.
All I was trying to do was provide, put food on the table. I was a dad at 19 years old. I had 3 kids by the time I was 22. I wanted to provide for them. I wanted to give them a chance, and rodeo gave me an opportunity to do that. Now, you had made the comment, one of the comments, Wesley Thorp wrote on a comment, what would I say now to my 20-year-old self? Well, the roping part and the competing part, I wouldn't do any different. I am so happy with how my career unfolded, even though there's one glitch in my whole career, and I think everyone knows it. I didn't win a gold buckle. I didn't win a world championship in the PRCA, but I would not change anything. But what I would tell my 20-year-old self is invest your time into people that are successful and doing well, and allow other people to help you when you made big wins to buy something that doesn't depreciate, that appreciates. Buy land. Invest your money smart so that when you get to your later years and you want to quit, you want to be done, you have something to show for it.
Learn how money works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's something I never did. And now I'm really blessed right now because at the end of my rodeoing, I didn't own a place. I had a couple of horses. I had IRS debt, not something I'm proud of. If you looked at my career and you looked at what I had, they didn't match up. And I'm okay with it. It was just, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
You know? So you got to live with how you do things. But now, because of this career, I have just gained this passion for teaching.
Yeah.
This passion for, I love and we're both doing it. We do a lot of schools together. I do stuff by myself. I do private lessons. Man, I eat up the chance to help other people with all of what I've gone through and what I've learned and how I think. I like to really dig in and get to the real nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of why everything happens so that the understanding is there so that people can see themselves getting better and they can grow and get better in the roping. I love when someone sends me a text or puts a message out that they won something. Whether it was their first buckle or whether it was their first big win or whatever it was, or they took 10 years off and then they come back and then I was able to help them a little bit and then they applied it. The one thing that I don't want to take any credit for anybody winning anything, because I promise you, unless you put the time in and you put the work in and you work on these things, you have to do it yourself.
Yep.
And that's, man, I love to see when people do that and then they get a good result and they realize, man, this is really cool. Yeah. And so now I have way less investment. I got 2 horses. I truly don't practice. I don't go rope very much. I don't if anything, I enjoy training a barrel horse.
Yeah.
You know, my wife loves to run barrels and her name's Cheyenne and she loves to run barrels. And so in the meantime, I'm trying to learn along the way how do you make a horse do the things it needs to do. I've made a half a turn and stop my whole career. And I always thought, well, barrel racing's so stupid. The barrels aren't even moving. Why can't you just run around them and go on? You know, it's just dumb. And then I actually start kind of studying it, not doing it. I don't get out of a high low, but studying it and realizing, you know what? When a steer moves, he's actually helping you and giving you the freedom to make a mistake, maybe with your spacing or with how your horse works, and then you can overcome it because everything stays in motion. And then you get to thinking about the barrel. That barrel don't move. If you come into it too tight, it doesn't move out of your way. Right. It stays there. So then your horse has to create space somehow. And so then learning just this horsemanship stuff and how to ride better, how to, all of these things. I even incorporate that into my kind of my horsemanship side of teaching team roping, is just how to ride better, how to be a better horseman, how to make your horse do the things you need him to do to help you. And so, and I guess over my career, I didn't get too caught up in trying to rope better. My whole career was based on those horses and how to learn how to ride them and communicate with them better so that it made them better. And in turn, it made me look like this great roper.
So when you end up getting like horses like Iceman, Jackyl, Switchblade, all the list goes on and on, Remix, LB and Abbey, and what do you look for in a heel horse? Because, I mean, you've found some great ones. You know, what is it that you've seen? What is it that you felt? What is it that, you know, did you train some of them? Did they just happen to just show up? You know, what is it that I mean, those are hard horses to find, and you had them.
Well, I'll tell you this. I didn't start with a donkey and create this great horse. I started with horses that had ability, had a feel, had a certain way of moving, and I don't even really know how to describe it. But the first day when I got on Iceman, and I was just a kid, and I run him up there around the turn and fired off on the first hop and roped the first steer, I wanted him.
They said that they said a lot of times that you don't know what a good horse is until you rode a good one.
Right.
And when you start off on Iceman, I would say that
then the standard was
you have
way
a pretty
high.
good feel
Yeah.
from there, for sure.
Yeah, but then it was like trying to replace him and then coming to grips with there will never be another Iceman.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Tyler Magnus come up to me at Austin, Texas at the rodeo, and he said, "Hey, you still looking for a horse?" I said, "Yes, I need a horse bad." He said, "Well, I think that little dun that I've been riding, I think you would fit him. Like, I think he would fit you. I think y'all would get along." I said, "All right, well, how much?" He told me. And it wasn't a whole lot. It wasn't much. But it was a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Tyler was nice enough to just what you would call carry the note till I won enough to be able to pay him. But I rode that horse at a Rope America roping the first time I ever got on him down there. I trotted him around the warm-up arena, and I fell in love with him. And I hadn't even run a steer yet.
Yeah.
And then I think I won first and third in the roping with T. Woolman and Rube Woolsey. And I know in the short round, I remember him, Jackyl, rearing up and walking out of the box on each one of the high teamers. And so then it was like, well, where did this come from? You know? And he had attitude. That was a tough horse that had a lot of attitude. And then I didn't really do anything to fix that. I just kept roping on him. And honestly, all of those horses, Tyler Magnus was also involved in Switchblade.
So Jackyl and Switchblade, I remember that back in the day, both came from Tyler.
Both came from Tyler. I showed up at Tyler's house one day just stopping in. I don't even remember. I think I was with Tommy Davis, and I was catching a ride back from Tucson or something. And anyway, we go through Llano. We stop at Tyler's place. Tyler's like, "Well, you want to run some?" I'm like, "You bet." What do you got? And he said, "Well, this little bay just showed up. He's tied in that pen. Just watch him. He can be a little squirrely sometimes, but saddle him up and run you a few on him, kind of see what he is." So I did, and I ran 4 on him, and I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. And I was like, "Well, how much you want for this one?" And he's like, "Oh, no, you need to get off. You need to go unsaddle him, put him back in the pen. He's not for sale." And it's like Tyler could see that day, like, wow, this could be really good. And then Tyler rode him for a couple of years there, and then he won the George Strait with Speedy Williams riding Switchblade. And then things worked around to where I had the opportunity to buy him later, and I did. I knew that I really liked that horse. And so then I ended up riding him for several years, and then and did really good on him.
So when you had Jackyl and you had Switchblade, what I remembered was you had a dynamic set of horses like Speed did. You know, Speed had Viper and the short score stuff, and he had Bob, you know, for the BFI, the Salinas, and all the stuff like that. That Jackyl was one short score dream. I mean, the way you came tight and how everything worked was amazing. But then when you got on Switchblade, your averages was like I don't know if he's a little bit longer strided, but it was just enough where he's free enough to right there where your average, like you had the dynamic like he had. Those were two horses that it didn't matter where you went. You had the remuda to kill them.
Yeah, it was kind of hard because it's a good thing but a bad thing to have two sure enough first stringers.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it was just whichever one I decided to ride that day.
Yeah. I bet everybody would hated that.
Yeah, it's tough. But I really didn't go, like I didn't just ride Switchblade at long scores and Jackyl at short scores. I won Salinas with Jake Barnes riding Jackyl. And then Jackyl was great. Basically anywhere, any arena you put him in.
Yeah.
He was a winner. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't cowy at all. He just, the way he worked, he put your loop on the ground for you. And he got to stopping so hard for me. I like to ride a little tighter, come across, separation, and he got to where it was just, it was a lot for me to get a dally and to throw there every single time. And so then I got to ride in Switchblade more. He was more forgiving, freer, flowier, kind of moving type of horse. He could run faster, all of those kind of things. And so then, and Michael Jones had been on me and on me and on me about selling a Jackyl to him. And he fit really good. And I let him ride him some, and he did really good on him. And so ultimately I ended up selling Jackyl to him. And then Jackyl went through a couple more guys. And
I just remember it was a 2005 where you rode with Jake Barnes. You had a good chance to win the world. You start off on Switchblade.
Yep.
And winning the average. Everything, it just looked so smooth. Everything was on page. Like, this is your chance right here to where you're going to finish him. Then Jake loses his thumb, and then he's out. So Trevor gets the call that year because I don't remember. What was the reason why Trevor, not the 16th guy, came in? What was that?
So I had the option of someone entered in the rodeo or the 16th header. The 16th header was Chad Masters, and he's in Tennessee, and there's this huge, like, blizzard snowstorm across the middle of the United States, so it's going to be a lot. And I called Chad and talked to him, and he was like, man, it's going to be tough for me to get there. Now, if you tell me to be there, I'll figure out a way to get there, and I'll ride whatever I need to, but, you know, this is the situation. Well, so I thought, well, he's here. He's watched the steers. He knows, like, and Travis Trine was gracious enough to say, hey, Trevor can ride Walt, which is quite possibly one of the best head horses ever. So it's like, well, let's go that route. So
Trevor gets on Walt. And you get on Jackyl, and you guys light him up. Like, that's when I thought of, like, holy smokes, here's a horse right there on Switchblade that's just so smooth like glass. This is going to let you just win the average. Well, now you're back against the wall. Now you got to win rounds. Now you get on him, and I'm telling you, them steers take a first hop. They don't get a chance for their feet to hit the ground again.
Yeah.
It was so dirty fast.
Yeah, it was, honestly, it was the most tragic year, but it was the best year at the NFR that I ever had. So out of all of those NFRs, only one time that year did I go there and not make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think Rich Skelton probably did it, I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
Like, he'd just come in there and go 10 for 10 or 9 for 9 or how many ever he'd get turned and never make a mistake. And that wasn't me. Man, I'd get a leg or I'd do something wrong. I'd miss. But that year, and I got the two best horses, I believed. When I went in, I made a plan. I said, well, as long as I'm in the average and things are looking good and we're doing and roping the way we want to rope to win this title, I'm going to stay on Switchblade. If something goes wrong and we go out of the average and I need to slam it down there and go fast, then I'm going to get on Jackyl. And so that year, me and Jake go 4 for 4. We placed in 3 out of the first 4 rounds. We're winning the average, and we are in the catbird seat. We're great shape. The 5th steer comes across there. I think maybe he was a little off the barrier. Steer kind of steps to him just a bit. He gets out over the front of old Barney, and that horse drops a little bit. And I don't know exactly how it happened, but a coil got over Jake's thumb, and it jerked his thumb off. And then that night, I can remember not knowing, man, I'm just praying Jake's okay. Everything, I guess I know that cutting your thumb off doesn't end your life.
Right.
But man,
Devastating.
That's tough, And so then I don't know if I just got to go home or I get to finish or whatever. So I start making some phone calls, and I can remember Kendra Santos being there because we were at the hospital that night, and talking. And so then I talked to the judges, and they give me the scenario, who I can get. I end up getting Trevor, and then we come back and we go, well, we win the 6th round. We split the 7th round, and then we go maybe split 3rd and 4th or something in the 8th round. And then, so the team that we're battling with is also out of the average, and that's Clay Trine, Patrick Smith. And they're great.
Yeah.
They are roping great. They're doing big things. And so, that Clay Trine, he's bound to determine on Thumper that they're winning the title.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want to win it and me win. He didn't want it to be a split deal. Him and Patrick were a team, and he wanted to win. They wanted to win that as a team. So I'm moving back up into the lead of the Heelan and going into the 9th round. I don't remember if I went first or they did, but they go 3-5 and win the 9th round. They're in the lead. And then in order for me to have any chance on the last steer, me and Trevor had to win the round, and they had to stump their toe. Like, they weren't going to win money in the average, I don't think, but they couldn't place at all. Like, in order for me to get back to the lead, well, then I think they went last. Trevor missed. We didn't have a very good steer, dropped his head. Trevor missed him, and then they come back, and they still placed on the last steer and won the world.
Yeah.
And so, but it was the first time and my only time that I went there and I made the shots. I made all the shots. I roped how I saw it before I got there. Switchblade worked great. Jackyl worked great. The crowd, just the appreciation, and like when Jake goes out and then come back, and some of the loudest, and and that was,
gained so much respect.
Oh, it was really cool. And that was the year that
you also grew some really great hair.
Yeah, I did that twice in 2003 with Daniel Green, and then again with Jake in 2005. And when I started the year, I thought, you know what, I'm growing my hair.
Just so everyone that kind of understands, you grow your hair out like Samson in the Bible. And I couldn't do it. There's no way I could do it. I don't have the patience for it. And so you do it. So it's a bet. Is that correct? What made you? Because you're a real conservative kind of fella. I mean, I'm looking at your hair right now. It looks like it's some ones on the side and some pretty tight trims up top.
Right.
And you being a real humble fella, and all of a sudden you come showing up like Sid Rock. You know what I mean? Like, what created the hair? What started that, first of all?
So, honestly, it came from an argument that me and my now ex-wife had at that time. She kept telling me I need to get a haircut, and I kept bucking the system and saying, no, I'm not getting a haircut. It's fine. I'll get a haircut next week. Well, we got this little something we need to go to, and you need to look good, so you need a haircut. And I was like, no, I'm not getting a haircut. And it happened to be February 22nd of whatever
year that was. Yeah.
Whatever. So I said, I tell you what, it's 2/22/02. I'll get a haircut 2/22 of 03. I'll just let it grow for a whole year. So that's just me and my hard-headedness, not willing to say, okay, honey, I'll get a haircut for you. I don't know, So anyway,
so you let that thing go
and flow. So that's why I let it go. And then it's long, and I'm thinking, man, that dang Sid Steiner, I thought that was pretty dang cool, getting the cornrows. So I show up in 03. I got long hair, and I go to this Albertsons to buy me a few toiletries and that kind of thing for, getting ready for the NFR week. And And so anyway, there's this black lady in line in front of me, and she's got just these beautiful braids, just all cornrowed up and braided up. And so I was like, hey, can I ask you a question? Just this nerd white kid, with long hair. And she's like, sure.
And I don't think you were in probably just a real great area, if I remembered right?
No, it's kind of over there, like where it's not great, a little rough. So, but I wasn't scared. I didn't care. So I asked, hey, where could I go get my hair braided? So she gives me this gal's number and says she's on North Las Vegas. It's kind of, sketchy up there. I don't know if you'd be real safe going up there, but if you want to, she's the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, all right, well, that's what I want. So I call this lady, and I mean, she ended up asking, are you white? I said, yeah, I'm just whiter than white, got red hair.
She could tell that over the phone?
Yeah, just talking on the phone. She's like, yeah, if you want your hair braided, just, all right, come on. So I go the next morning, and I sat in there for 2 hours getting my hair braided up, and that was in 03. And then I cut it after that year, and then when me and Jake started roping in 05, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna grow my hair again, because I see me and Jake winning the world.
Yep.
And I want to do it with cornrows, and it was kind of a hit the first time, but I didn't do great. But I want to do something big, and I'm gonna I had this T-shirt that I got whenever I was, I don't know, 15 years old at the fair, and I threw darts at these balloons, and I won this T-shirt, and what it said on the front was "Dare to be different."
Yeah.
And I stuck by it.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I had a big flat top, like the big Kid and Play flat top with stripes in the side.
Like Iceman on Top Gun.
Yeah. But so anyway, that was kind of how that whole thing come about. And now, to this day, there's people I talk to that went to the NFR dang near every one of those years that I went, and they never remembered me roping except the year that I had cornrows.
Yeah. No, you did. You created a pretty cool little culture right there, and some excitement in team roping, which is not easy to do. But my dad is a diehard heeling fan. A diehard. I could have turned, I don't know how many steers for Joseph or any of the guys that I rope with, and he asked me how I do. I said, well, they roped a leg, and I was like, wow, you might want to work on those handles, because that guy never ropes a leg. It was never the healer's fault.
Right.
Because my dad was a healer. Well, when Sid Steiner gets cornrows like 2000, 2001 or whatever, when he's on the cover of the Spin to Win with them cornrows and the shirt off and the leather pants, I think, and the whatever it was. And
I didn't take it quite that far, but anyway,
my dad cancels his Pro Rodeo Sports News subscription. He canceled it. This beat your man with the can kind of guy's going to come in here with rock and roll and just change this whole thing. And I'm like, I don't know if it's really that bad or not, Dad. But I mean, no, I'm not doing it. He was conservative as they come. He canceled his subscription. You come out, I believe you were on the cover of the Spin to Win back then. If I remember right, tipping your hat with the cornrows on, right?
Yeah.
I said, hey, Dad, what about Kory right there? Them cornrows, what do you think about that? Well, you heal like that. You can do whatever you want. Like, if you're a healer with my dad, it doesn't matter. I'm like, oh, that's the craziest thing ever.
No wrong.
You could do no wrong in my dad's house. That was funny. You did. It was a very entertaining time right there when you pulled that off. It was pretty cool.
Funny.
So when you come out and you have Jackyl and you have Switchblade, and you have some of the most dynamic heel horses right there in your trailer, and then you sell them, what was it that your decision to sell those horses when you have that kind of a herd right there in your trailer that matches and everything that where you're going, and then you sell them? What was it that made you sell them, and what gave you confidence in other horses that you're going to be able to replace them, I guess?
Well, for one thing, finances. I don't hide the fact that didn't start with money and didn't end with money. So and my thought was, you can only ride one at a time. I'd come to the point, as far as Jackyl, I guess kind of one of the last things that happened with me and Jackyl was at Ellensburg, Washington. I come around the corner, me and David Key, he spins me a great steer. Steer's got some action to him, and I get out over the front of Jackyl a little bit, and the next thing, I heel the steer really fast, and I think we might have won the round. We were 4-something or placed or something, but the next thing I feel is he gets in the ground, and then that saddle horn comes up and hits me in the sternum, and literally felt like a day, is just maybe a minute, but I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch my air, bruised my sternum, and like I thought, man, alive, this horse just stops too hard. Like whatever I've done on him the last several years, I've created a monster. And
you learned how to read it.
Oh, man, and he didn't, when you got out over him, he didn't drop. He would hit, and then that saddle horn would come up, and that's how he wasn't very big, but there was no steer that I ever roped that ever pulled him or caught him off balance. Like he would just, it was like a pit bull getting a hold of a cow's leg and just wanting to rake the hide off of it. That's how he was with how he took a hold. Well, then when Michael Jones would ride him, he would take him away from the corner a little bit, create a little more space, come in. Jackyl was more forgiving for him. So I thought, you know what?
So just in a different way, he rode a corner right there.
Yep.
Having a little more momentum on the way in, give him enough time to.
Yep. Created a whole different shot for him. And so, and he loved him, and he was just begging me to sell him to him. And so, and I priced him high. I didn't price him to sell him, and I didn't mind keeping him, but I priced him at what I could live with selling him for. And right. So I did that, and then I just had Switchblade, and then along come, I went, did a school down in Pleasanton, Texas, a good friend down there with David Key, and then I got on this Little Bay this one day, and that was LB, and they called him Little Bay. He was just this little, and he was more of a reining bred, sliding kind of horse, but if you moved him in, he wouldn't run into the steer, and if you just got the steer in his way a little bit, he would rate the steer, and then, so I liked riding tight, so then he became my backup, and that guy worked with me a lot on getting him bought, the guy that owned him, and so then he came along, and so then the more I got to riding him, and I got to thinking, man, Switchblade is worth as much as he's going to be worth ever, so maybe I'll entertain the thought of getting a big payday again, and then I'll just keep kind of shuffling these things through here, and that'll be part of, and I'm no part salesman, no part horse trader or any of that, but I thought, man, when a horse is really good, they sell theirself.
Yep.
And there's guys that are willing to pay, and so I ended up
proven.
Yeah, they see me on a daily basis. So there's no hidden anything. So Al Bach ends up buying Switchblade from me, and then I moved on from there. And then basically I sold LB because I got broke. I was just as broke as I could be. I had a stack of bills on the kitchen table, and man, it was, I needed money. And so I priced him to several guys really high. No one bid on him. And then I ended up selling him to Clay Cooper for a way more kind of discounted price, but it was what he was willing to pay.
Right.
And
had a good success on him. That horse did amazing.
Yeah, I think to me that was the best combo.
It was phenomenal because every time you sold them horses,
they went on
highlighted their careers. The guys that were there,
they did big things, and I mean, so that I looked at that like, man, I got a lot of. Yeah, those are guys I'm competing against, and I'm trying to beat them, and I virtually sold them something that give them better opportunity to beat me.
Right.
But I thought, man, the best guy's going to win anyway. So it to me, it was a good thing on both ends. And I loved watching Jackyl and the guys that rode him. I loved watching Jade Corkle and Switchblade probably meshed as good as any combination of horse and rider that I've seen And then Clay and LB, man, they just fit.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a lot of joy, just seeing those horses get to be elevated to and help those guys win a lot. And I just always, I guess that confidence that I was blessed with, or how God made me, didn't ever make me think, well, if I sell this horse, then I'm not going to be as good.
Yeah.
I just figured, you know what, as long as I want to be good, I'll be good.
Yeah.
And that might sound dumb, but that was the way I went about it. And, man, then Abby came along. I was trying to ride Remix. He was young. He was wanting to hump up every time that I walked away from the trailer, and wanted to buck and wanted to just, I mean, you want to talk about a battle through. I got that horse when he was a yearling, and then from breaking him to sending him off to J-Love, Jason Thomas at Canyon, and him pounding on him for a while, and then him telling me, hey, I think this thing's a piece of shit. You need to get rid of him. And then, you know, just one thing after another. It was a battle. So then I'm roping with Kobe Lovell, and he's like, hey, you need something? And I think we're at Reno.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you should ride Abby. Just get on her. He said, I healed some on her the other day. She felt good. She's done both ends. Just get on her and see if you like her. So then I started riding her. We did good at Reno. We did good all through the 4th of July. We made the finals, went into the NFR, and had a chance to win the world that year, and it didn't work out. But I ended up buying her from Colby. She was kind of his third string head horse. And there was a couple of times while I was riding her that he would say, hey, mine's sore. I need to ride her. We're at Vernal, Utah, and the night before he tells me, hey, I need to ride Abby tomorrow. And I was like, all right. So I saddled a Remix right then, and he stayed saddled for like 24 hours and got rode for 20 of those hours and drove the other 4 hours to get over there and make sure he wasn't going to buck me off. And then Colby just hangs it on one fast. I heal him good off a Remix, and we win Vernal, Utah. And Abby, he was heading on her, and then his horse got her right. So then I went back to heeling on her, and she just did whatever you needed her to. I rode her at
What a horse.
several NFRs, and she's amazing. She had a lot of try. She was great, but I had nothing to do with her being great.
Kobe Lovell's done a heck of a job of having a pretty good eye for a horse, too, and healing. He's doing it right now, and he's really showing it now in the fraternities, too.
Yeah. He understands, and he knows how to ride them. He knows how to break them. He knows how to make them move good. He's got a good feel for doing all of those things. And then
very impressive.
Yeah. And then Remix, shoot, I just was too hard-headed to give up on him.
Yeah.
I just wanted him to be just a halfway good practice horse. And then the more I rode him, the more solid he was getting, the better he was getting. And then to the point to where I ended up selling him to Travis Graves. Travis didn't do as good as he wanted to on him. He rode him at the NFR, I think maybe 6 rounds or something, and won some decent money. But then the feel wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so then he sold him. Doggone, I'm having a blank, but anyway.
I thought one of the interesting things on Remix was, we back up to 2020.
Right.
Leaving Stephenville, headed to Hamilton.
Yeah.
Getting a wreck. What happened?
I went to Hamilton to a roping, and then coming back to the house. It was raining, kind of a little bit foggy, and I'm literally 3 miles from my house, almost to my turn, and a car comes over in my lane, probably going to have a head-on collision. I try to avoid it. I get kind of sideways on the offside bar ditch, and it slings my trailer into big bloomer trailer into these trees. And Remix was in the back stall, and I had another little horse that I'd bought a few months prior to that was coming along really good, and it killed him. And then Remix had some, sure enough,
issues.
His head, his shoulder, like different things. And
He got banged up pretty good when I remember seeing the pictures.
He was dang sure. He lost quite a bit of weight. He wasn't doing good for a while. And I took him to Josh Harvey, Outlaw Equine. He took good care of him. He injected him and did some things to try to help the healing process, and whatever he did worked. And in a few months, I'd say 6 months or so, I was back on him, getting him legged up. And then it was almost like that, after that wreck, Remix appreciated life a little more, maybe. I don't know what it was.
It's amazing what some humbleness will do, I guess.
But he worked better after that. And then,
then a year later, 2021,
fast
go to the
forward, BFI. I'd been amateur rodeoing with me and Manny and going to a few circuit rodeos. And then we go to the BFI.
Feels like you're getting toward the end of your career.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I can see the end coming. And at that moment, I hadn't decided that I wasn't going to compete at all the next year, but I was definitely, at that time, I'm 50 years old, 49 years old, wherever it was, and man, I'm getting sick of it. Like, just the game, the gamble, the everything that's riding on every run, the amount of pressure on me, my partner, to make it all work. And so I was getting a bad attitude, but at the BFI, I feel at home. Like that, you say, okay, you got to catch 6 steers. They're big, strong, juicy, kind of fresher, stronger type steers. That fits me. Like I like that. And so Manny roped great. I got him healed, and we win the biggest roping, that we have
at that time.
Yeah, and it was actually 25 years in between my second win and my third win of the BFIs, and I'd won quite a bit in between, but I'd not won it.
BFI, yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, that to see Manny win a major, big paying, big roping that he had dreamed about winning his whole life, and he's up in his 40s, and then for me to win it at kind of toward the end of my career, and man, that was a big day.
But then tell me about what horse won the heel horse of the BFI.
Yeah, so then Remix wins the horse of the jackpot, the heel horse of the roping, and man, it felt good all of the times. Well, just all of the crap that he put me through and tried to kill me. He did buck me off 4 times out of trying to buck me off hundreds of times. I actually got to where I thought I might start riding saddle broncs, but then I realized after
you don't have a thumb, you can't do it.
Yeah, I watched a video of Remix bucking at one point. Somebody videoed it, and I was like, man, he's just crow hopping. He's not even bucking hard.
It felt like he was kicking.
And I thought I scored like 85 points. But
you got to rewrite it. It's funny.
But no, that horse come a long way, and it took a long time.
Yeah.
I got him when he was a yearling, and he wasn't what I would call high level, really good horse until he was 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
And
took a long time to mature.
But he was a good one.
Excuse me. Sorry, that cough just popped up again on me. So I would say your career was like so phenomenal, but one of the things, like when everyone always puts you in a certain category, when guys are driving, you're talking about certain subjects, and the first thing a lot of guys will talk about, who is the baddest healer that's never won the world title? And to me, your name always is at the top. Like everyone said, like, I cannot believe like it didn't happen because you were just such a phenomenal career. What is it you think that what do you think that is I know you thought about it. We've always talked about it. It's just always one of them hard questions to ask, but what do you think it was that why it just never happened?
Well, it boils down to partnerships. It boils down to timing. It's hard to win them. It really is. And, things happen at certain times, and some guys come up big and win them, and I just never did. And there was only a few times, even in my whole career, that I actually had a viable chance. All of those years that Speed and Rich were winning the world, I had no chance because they were beating everybody by, 50 or 100,000, like they were running off with them. And then, I really don't think it's one thing here or there. I do think I could have roped better in certain years. If I was going to pick it apart, I maybe could have roped with different partners different years and kind of did things. But when I look back, I don't regret anything I did. I don't regret sticking with certain guys to make sure that if we were going to split, it needs to be because we need to split. Not, well, I just kind of feel like I'm done with you, so I'm going to go to the next one kind of thing. That's not how I wanted to be or do things. And so, I really don't have an answer. Bottom line is I didn't rope good enough. I roped good enough on a lot of certain days to win a lot of these big ropings. And I do feel like I roped as good as anybody on certain days. But as a whole year-long journey, each time, I never was the best. I never did elevate to where I wanted, and I was the best that year. When people talk about the best guy that never won the world, that's not something I at first it even make me mad to even, it's like, well, that doesn't make me feel good. I don't want to be in that conversation. And then it's like, well, you know what? There's a lot of guys that didn't win the world.
Yeah.
And so to be the best at something.
Well, and I would say too, anybody who's been out there like, we both have, the timing of things and the, it's not easy. And you've always healed good enough to do it. It was just one of those things to where it just didn't, in my opinion, it just never happened because it wasn't for the talent and just the stars never really.
Yeah.
Because the times you were close and I thought it was fixing to happen and then it just didn't. But, man, what a career. But, one of the things too that I don't know how many people know too is, the ups and downs of a 30-year career, trying to rope for money, to create a livelihood and the stress of all that. The other thing that was also difficult was doing that with diabetes.
Yeah.
So how hard was it, maintaining your body, maintaining the going up and down the road, maintaining this disease? How hard was that?
It's not easy. And I would look at what other guys had to deal with and their ups and downs, and then look at what I had to deal with diabetes. And anybody that has diabetes can relate, but there's a whole nother, spectrum of things that you have to deal with as far as eating, as far as sleeping, as far as keeping your blood sugar good, and all of those things that weigh into feeling good enough to compete all the time. And so, but I got it when I was 16, so it's just part of my life. And so I never looked at it like diabetes was never going to hold me back. It was never going to dictate whether I could win or not. It was never going to be something that restricted me in any way. And I think you could ask Luke Branquino's a diabetic. There's several guys that have been world champs, been great in an event that you just deal with it. It's part of your life. There's no cure for it. So you just learn. It's kind of like, dealing with your horses or dealing with whatever there is to deal with in a day. You just deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I would tell any kid nowadays. My doctor told me when I got it, and he said, well, you're going to have to slow down. Like, you're going to have to manage this. You're going to have to, not be so hard on your body and all of that. And I was like, well, I'll deal with it, but I'll deal with it doing what I want to do and how I want to do it so that I can accomplish what I want to accomplish. And it just became part of me, part of my life. And there were several times where I dang near died.
Really?
There was a couple of times where my blood sugar got really low, and man, it could have been a bad outcome. And I've had people help me with buying an insulin pump, with helping me when I went off my pump. And then Scott and Joe Rep from Ellensburg, Washington are dear friends, and I about died at their place up there one year, and they got a group of people around, and people donated, and even ropers and different, they just went to scrounging up and came up with some money and gave to me and said, here, we want you to have this. Please go use this for a pump and to take care of yourself better. And so I did, and I could never thank those people enough. When you look at my career, it definitely took a village. It took a whole, I've got so many friends, so many people that have helped me throughout my career to get to where I'm at. There's no way I could ever repay them. And so I'm very thankful for those people and pouring into me and trusting me and believing in me. And then also, just living with diabetes is something that you just have to decide that you're going to overcome on a basically not even a daily basis, but an hour by hour by hour basis every day of your life, so that it doesn't drag you down, where you can do the things you want to do.
Yeah, because I remember a few times, like when you and I would travel together and jump in the rig, and you could tell like you were falling down, and you're like, man, I need something real quick right here to get it back up. And I remember trying to always, now that we're working together, always kind of keeping track of, hey, we need a candy bar, we need some orange juice, kind of what we need. And and I always giggle too, some of these young Thundercats coming up and say, I'm going to make it by myself. I'm going to get this done. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be in the world. I'm going to do it on my own.
Right.
You're crazy, man. It is. I mean, it's, when you're rodeoing, it is amazing the people that come into your life that help.
Yeah.
And you can't do it on your own. There is so many networking and people that come into your life when you're rodeoing and become great friends that help you financially, mentor you, or give you good advice, or, you don't do it on your own. There's so many people that, might take care of your horse or drive for you or get you one place or another. And, the reps were amazing at that West Star Open in Ellensburg, what they did, and the amazing hospitality that they did for so many cowboys, just open up their place, their whole pasture, everything. And those guys were definitely blessings of God right there.
Oh, man. Yep. Really, really, really good people.
One of the other things too, like, now that you and I are doing clinics, and I always get a giggle out of it because you've always had a nickname, since you're, since I remembered. And, and I'll say, hey, dog, you ready to quit? Or, hey, dog, we're ready for lunch. And it's so funny because I'll look up and people are like, did you just call him a dog?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you guys don't realize, like, that's Kory's nickname.
Yeah.
So dog has always been one of the nicknames you've always had. How'd you get that nickname, and how did that come about?
Well, so when I was in high school, before the U.S TRC ever come around, there was, in Lubbock, we'd go to this little indoor arena, and there was A ropings, B ropings, and C ropings.
Yeah.
So I'm roping in the A roping, which would be like the open, and I'm just pulling shots off and there's guys there that I looked up to at that time that were the big dogs, and it was Steve Purcell, Jeff Medlin, Sterling Price, Sid Price, Wes Smith, like all of these guys that roped really good. Well, I'm pulling off shot after shot, and old Sterling Price, he said, "You just hot dogging, ain't you? You just hot dogging." Well, then the next roping comes around, and they hung around, and then I wasn't hot dogging anymore because I got to where I couldn't catch. I got the big head, I got full of myself, and I'm trying to make these shots, and I ain't catching nothing. And so then he got to where he would yell out, every time I'd miss, he would just yell out, "Corn dog! Corn dog! You corn dog!" That one, he not hot dogging, he corn dogged. And so it was just, and somehow that hooked on, and that it was corn dog.
Yeah.
That was my nickname. And then we get to rodeoing over years, and then it just became dog.
Yeah.
or big dog, but that became, or the dog, you know, like then everybody got to calling everybody dog, but then that's the dog. That he's different, you know, whatever. And so, but it stuck through just all over my whole career.
Yeah.
It never went away. And if I run into someone my age or a little older, corn dog, how you doing?
That's funny.
And then if I run into, you
My
know,
era.
yeah, like your era, whatever, and I mean, I can remember the first time me and Cheyenne are walking along somewhere, and what's up, dog? And she's like, why does everybody call you dog? It's like, well, that's my name.
Yeah. Come from your cornrows? No, it actually came from my healing.
No, but so anyway, that was kind of how it.
It is funny because when I came in that era, like it fit because like you were a healing dog, you know, and so that's what we all remember. Like when you're healing that good, it was dog pound. It was fun to watch, man. Just what an inspirational career. What a phenomenal career. The things you've won and the people you've inspired along the way, and man, this is great to call you a friend, and it's been great to see. And
well, I appreciate that. That to me, those are the things that live on. I got, you know, those wins, those buckles, those saddles, all that stuff at the house. Man, the kids nowadays, they don't even, you know, some of these young people that we get at our schools, they're respectful, but they don't even know who I am. And so then you start to realize all of that withers away. But how you treat people, how you do things, how you live is what you want to keep living on.
Yeah.
And so that's more important to me than any.
It's been fun doing clinics with you when you're able. Especially some of the clinics we do too, where we got a bunch of young kids, and you do such a great job of, you know, how you present yourself, how you tuck your shirt in, how you wear your clothes, you know, how you present yourself. That's what the sponsor's looking for. You know, when you're treating your horse good, when you're treating people good, when you go out there and pick someone's rope up, you know, for them, and you know, you do a great job of the up and coming kids out there with the example you set by doing it, and then the example of like being able to help them understand what integrity looks like. So you've done a great job with your career. And so what are you doing now? Like, you know, I know you're doing a lot of clinics and stuff. How do we follow you? If anyone interested in clinics, how do we get a hold of you, and how do we follow you throughout the year?
Well, I need to do a better job and put more stuff out on social media, but Facebook, you can find me. There's a fan page there. My personal page, it's all open to the public. Instagram, you can find stuff on there. Just my name, you know, type it in there. Stuff's gonna pop up. You know, it's doing clinics, doing schools is a great way for me to make a living now, and I'm really enjoying it. And it, you know, I guess the only way I would quit doing this is if I'm not physically able, or if I win the lottery. That'd be the only way I'd quit. But
well, you got a heck of a gift at it. You know, we've done a lot of clinics together, and it's really fun too to see how the healers start on the first day, and then that second day, just see the difference in where their riding is, and how they're picking up timing and being able to set that loop in. There's a huge difference almost in every clinic that I watch, and you know,
I appreciate that.
I think that like when you've grown up roping in the 80s and 90s and professionally roping that long, you have so much knowledge to be able to give because you've gone through so many eras, and there's not any steer that could handle that you haven't seen.
Right.
And so to be able to help somebody right there, well, on that steer right here, this is how you get ahead of this. This is how you ride this corner. You know, the knowledge you bring is it's really fun to watch at your clinics.
Well, I appreciate that, and I just really, I have a lot in my head and inside of me, and then I get to talking, and I got to be careful every now and then because I'll look up, and I've been talking to them for 2 hours, and these people are like, when are we going to get to throw rope, throw a loop or whatever? It's like, but I love sharing.
Yeah.
And I tell my students at the schools, look, I'm an open book. You can ask any question about anything. The more we talk, the more I'll share, the more you'll learn, the more you soak up, the better you can be. It can be about attitude. It can be mental. It can be, horsemanship. I'm not the greatest horseman, but I try hard, and I've got.
You know how to put those horses in the right spot. That is dang sure one
think
thing.
Consistency with how you ride and how you communicate with them and how you set them up creates good stuff. And then fundamental things of roping, or I've had people come to me after school and want to talk about God, want to talk about those kind of things, and then, just being willing to share and give and serve, I think, is a big deal with being able to be blessed. Giving is huge. Now, we're not giving and not getting paid. I mean, we're making a living doing this. I'm making a living doing this, but those little extra times that you get to spend a little time with someone, or somebody looks like they need something a little extra, and then just spending a little more time. And we always say our clinics are 9 to 5, and then I don't know that we ever stop at 5. But we stop when everybody's done.
We stop when everybody feels like they got what they needed.
Yeah, for that day. And then, and I'm a big, I'm not big on, well, when I start changing you, you're going to get worse before you get better, and you're going to, you're going to struggle for a long time. And then when you finally get all this, put in, then you're going to rope better at some point, but it's going to be way down the road. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I believe that if you place these good fundamentals in, and you convince people and get them to see themselves do it, and them know what you're talking about and explain it in the right way, and they can incorporate that in the roping, then they can get better immediately. Get a good feel for how their swing works. Get a good feel for putting their rope on the ground, placing that loop down there. A good feel for riding their horse and doing these things that they're fairly simple things, but there's so many different pieces that have to fit together in order for the puzzle to be where you can recognize what it looks like.
Right.
For those runs to come together so that, you can be successful, that you can put 4 runs together. I had a guy today tell me, you know what my goal is? I want to catch 4 in a row. I want to catch 4 in a row. I want to be able to go to a World Series roping. I want to catch 4 in a row, and I want to win. And so it's like, all right, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the things you need, and then you're going to have to work on them.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to.
Here's the tools.
Yeah. And so that's, man, I love that.
Yeah.
And
we've done a lot of clinics, and that's what's fun is, like, I can see your passion. I can see, like, and everyone there can tell too. It's one thing to do clinics with people, like, you can tell they're doing it for the money, they're burnt out, they don't like doing it. Not one time have you ever been that way. You've been passionate about it, and it's been fun to be able to coach along the side of you. And I know next month we get to come back to Arizona. We're finishing up a clinic here in Aguila, Arizona. It's been a great clinic, great people. The weather got a little bit chilly, but we kind of dodged wind and then the rain on Sunday, so it's been pretty good blessing where then we did come. The weather is going to be good.
Right.
Man, had an amazing clinic out there. Some great, on the head side was, man, some of the greatest clinic people we've had. And I know that everyone on the heel side looks so receptive and come with such a teachable spirit. And then we come back again in February. I know we go to Maricopa with the Triple C Ranch, February 17th and 18th. So if you want to look up Triple C Ranch on Facebook, I know you're sharing it on your fan page. I'm sharing it on my fan page.
Yep.
I think Mike and Jenny Canfield's number is on there. So, anybody interested is here in Arizona. We're coming back in February.
You bet.
Well, Dog, thanks for sharing your story, man. It was good to get to know you. It was good to get to know some of the backstories of all the things you've accomplished. And man, it's an honor to call you a friend. And it's I'm glad to be able to witness your career and to see a lot of the things that you won, and also see how you've inspired people outside of the arena as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm blessed to call you friend. I enjoy doing the schools. I enjoy our friendship. I enjoy all that has gone on that's through my career that's built into this place, and I'm very humble and very thankful that you would even ask me to be on here so that we can kind of throw out there and let people hear some of the stories and some, kind of fun stuff that we talk about like it's nothing.
I know it.
But so anyway, I appreciate it.
All right, Doc. Well, thanks, buddy, and we'll see you guys down the road. Thanks for listening, everybody.